Hello, my name is Masanya Scott. I'm a principal specialist under our AWS Management and Governance Services, particularly Control Tower and AWS Service Catalog. And I want to have a great conversation with you all today on an intro to the AWS Service Management Connector for ServiceNow. Now, I started 20 years my career as a support engineer in a help desk supporting applications. So I understand the transition and the uh, evolution of operations. And what we're going to do is talk about cloud operations and how this connector can enable you. So let's go to our learning objectives, okay? By the end of this session, you're going to be able to understand the importance of cloud operations and your ability to scale. You're going to understand what are AWS Management and Governance suite of products and why they matter. You're going to understand, we're going to give you some tools on how to provision and manage AWS resources consistently and predictably. And then finally, you're going to just get an opportunity to evaluate the connector and also an opportunity to learn how you can learn more about the connector, download it, and provide us feedback. Because we love to get feedback from our customers because they shape our products going forward. So let's talk about a scaling use case, okay? And let's think about, like today I had to have my favorite cup of coffee. And think about a coffee shop chain, right? And as a coffee shop chain scales, they have to think about different things. How can I scale in a predictable manner, whether it's regionally, nationally, or globally, so that my consumers can get the same experience and the same taste that they love and have to have? So they create repeatable experiences. They have the stores that have that same look and feel and may have the regional flair depending on the culture of that region. They'll provide the same menu items and services. They also have those same operational perspectives and procedures in which their employees and associates or whatever that coffee shop chain calls them guides their operations of from giving the customer what they need to managing the stores and the locations. And what they're trying to do is set up those consistent standards and best practices across the board so that they can scale efficiently and effectively, right? So let's kind of translate that to what a store would do as in comparison to what some AWS services that we have, and they follow that same kind of mechanism, right, from a management and governance perspective. So stores kind of have that same look and feel. They have that same set of standards, similar to setting up that framework and control tower for your platform architecture. Those consumable products that people ask and request, they have that menu item. And that's no different than AWS Service Catalog, which creates products, makes CloudFormation products so that cloud engineers can request predictable resources that they know are secure and governed and approved from their administrators. And then from an inventory, what do they have? How much do they need? What do they need to order? Our service AWS Config not only manages resources, but also the state of those resources and also enables detective controls so that you can ensure that the resources are aligned to your compliance rules. And then finally, if you're thinking about those operational procedures, in the event there's an issue, in the event that something's out of order or something needs to be addressed, executing those different operational procedures is similar to AWS Systems Manager, right? So what we're trying to do is say that the products and standards that any coffee shop may have for all the different goods and services that they sell, those also translate to IT services. And when you're thinking about as you're moving your production workloads to the AWS cloud, you're also trying to align and figure out how do we align to industry standard governance such as ITIL and IT Service Management, also known as ITSM, to make sure those different things happen. So at AWS, we have 16 management and governance services in our console: CloudWatch, Service Catalog, Systems Manager, and Config. And you're probably saying, why is this relevant? As our customers grow in the use of AWS, these services become critical in establishing the right level of control over their environment without slowing down innovation. And we've broken up these services into 3 areas: enablement, provisioning, and operations, to balance that agility and governance control. Okay? And so we listened to our customers' feedback that they have too many operational tools, right? Multiple owners, and limited resources and time to establish that right balance and between agility and innovation. So based on our culture of customer obsession, we've developed this AWS Service Management Connector for ServiceNow. It used to be called the Service Catalog Connector in its initial launching, but this allows ServiceNow end users to provision, manage, and operate AWS resources natively via ServiceNow. ServiceNow administrators can provide pre-approved, secured, and governed AWS resources to end users via AWS Service Catalog. And then they can execute automation playbooks via AWS Systems Manager and track resources in the ServiceNow CMDB powered by AWS Config seamlessly in ServiceNow. Now, this simplifies AWS product request actions for ServiceNow users and provides governance and oversight over AWS products. This AWS Supply Connector is available at no charge in the ServiceNow store. So let's take a quick look at the architecture of the connector. If you start on the right side from that end user experience, end users go and browse products in ServiceNow Service Catalog, which is translated to ServiceNow Catalog items for either AWS Service Catalog products or AWS Systems Manager document playbooks that they can request to orchestrate, right? They select it, they configure it, and once they put in the necessary inputs, they order now. And then from that experience, what happens is we use our native public AW APIs to connect back to AWS to enable the launching, the execution of automation documents, as well as gathering the resource details in AWS Config to put in ServiceNow CMDB. Now, the benefits for this connector are agility, security, as well as the ability to streamline provisioning, resource transparency in familiar tools such as ServiceNow. This connector enables various use cases for self-service and resource transparency. So think about requesting a full stack. Think about account vending. Think about also end-user compute with Amazon Workspaces or just AWS resources. And you may have in your mind a use case that your organization may have. But what I normally consult our customers on is think about those most common requests that your engineers, your end users are asking for to be provisioned or orchestrated in AWS. And those are the types of products that you would put into the connector that are visible in ServiceNow's Service Catalog, okay? And if you're thinking about industries that are using this connector or in proof of concepts of this connector or using these connectors in their ServiceNow production, there are examples of financial services, telecommunications, the public sector, education, utilities, and more. So let me give some examples, some more tangible examples, for example, for financial services. We've worked with a large financial services organizations, analytics organization, who wants the ability for their data analysts. Their data analysts didn't want to become experts in AWS, but they wanted the ability to get the infrastructure needed, whether it's EMR clusters or SageMaker notebooks to go and request that in a consistent fashion without having to become experts. So the result of that is they started out with 10 CloudFormation templates. Those 10 CloudFormation templates came out to be 100 within a given time frame. And in order to rein in that governance and control, they decided to leverage AWS Service Catalog to create provisioned and guardrails for products that their data analysts could request. And the result was they were able to streamline back down the number of products available and then have those products be available in ServiceNow so that they could track what types of resources they were provisioning. From a resource transparency, we're working with large financial companies based in Australia who need, for compliance standards, to make sure that resources that are being provisioned in AWS accounts are being tracked in their ServiceNow CMDB, which is considered the system of record for them. And then from a telecommunications perspective, we have a large telecom company that started out with our journey with these connectors of using this to give kits, development types of kits for different types of products and test environments. And the result of that was giving that systematic self-service and governance for those different use cases. We do have partners that are either trained or have embedded these connectors into our solution, into their offerings for their own solutions. And this is the list of partners that we have here. And now what we're going to do is we've given that overview. We've given the value of scaling for customers. We've talked about an overview of why the AWS Service Management Connector for ServiceNow is important. Now let's get tangible. Let's go and demo this connector. What I'm going to do is start at the end where, after the connector's been set up, we're going to start from the end user experience on ServiceNow Service Portal, do requests to provision a resource. Then we're going to go through some lifecycle management. We'll talk about what we put into the CMDB, and then briefly talk about how it can be leveraged for automation. All right. So, okay, now, everybody, we are now at ServiceNow Service Portal. Now, I have my own what we call a vendor instance. And what we're going to do is show, and this is just out of the box, just a baseline instance. Some of you who've installed ServiceNow in your own companies should see this. And the ability to either request something or go directly to the catalog. So I'm just going to hit request something, okay? And then I get different categories. So if you see this, you see that we now create a main category called AWS Service Catalog for requesting products in ServiceNow Service Catalog. And you also see a net new AWS Systems Manager category. Then you also see this popular items section, and you'll notice that AWS resources are in the same area as just your everyday request in ServiceNow. We acknowledge the fact that the richness of the ServiceNow platform is the ability to request business services, whether it's ordering an Apple, iPad, mobile phone, or even requesting facility services. So streamlining this in one kind of single pane view is what gives customers the ability to minimize that swivel chair experience and give them the ability to request things in familiar tooling, right? So I'm just going to go first to the category AWS Service Catalog, and then I'm also going to show you that what we did also is this connector supports multiple accounts and multi-regions. So for every account that's connected to this particular ServiceNow vendor instance, as well as the regions, if they have AWS Service Catalog portfolios, and it translates portfolios means categories in ServiceNow, and so these will be considered subcategories. What we do is we through the integration and the synchronization between the two, we bring in those products and portfolios in here so that you can see that there are various different products and portfolios from different angles. And what I'm going to do is go into one of my portfolios. I tell you I give it an account alias, show you what region these products are in. And what I'm going to do is order a web server, right? You also see that I have SageMaker, S3 storage, RDS, different types of things that we have available. And so what I'm going to do now is the other benefit for ServiceNow administrators for this connector is that through the connector, we create the form for you, right? And we'll talk about that a little bit more. But what the form does is we only expose the things that the end user needs to input for requesting that product. We don't expose infrastructure as code, long cloud formation, or even Terraform templates. We don't expose that. We just expose what the customer needs, end user needs in order to do that. So we auto-populate the product name that's required by AWS Service Catalog. If the product has more than one version, you can choose different versions. And so this version, LampStack 3, has these parameters. If I selected another product, you see that it's going to come in and dynamically bring in different parameters. But let's go back. I want to do my favorite, LampStack 3. 3 is my favorite number, by the way. And so what we're going to do is we're going to provision a M1. Let's be conservative. T2 large, okay? And one of the other features of the AWS Service Catalog is that we enable you to associate to products, which are just nothing but CloudFormation templates or Terraform, if you evaluated the Terraform reference architecture. And what we do is you can associate tags. I call them standardized tags. The official name is tag options. And if tags are associated to a product, every time that product is requested, those standardized tags come in. So if you've ever had challenges where your engineers had to write scripts to figure out what production is, because some people put the tag in as mixed case, uppercase, all that, you allow by putting tag options on your governance so that you can see which ones you want. You can create tags for different things. And so when I order this, I'm just going to order it now, and it's going to do an order confirmation the same way as you ordering a facility service request in ServiceNow or ordering an Apple iPad or a laptop. I'm going to check out. It's going to go through the process. We did not change that baseline workflow. And then the order status is going to say that this is considered pre-approved out of the box. We do have blogs on how to set up approvals and update the workflow for products in ServiceNow that become catalog items. And so right now, what it's going to do is it's starting that initial details. It's going to start that provisioning for this. I'm going to go quickly in this EC2 in the AWS console. So now I've switched from ServiceNow to AWS. I'm going to do a quick little refresh, and I should see, bam, it's provisioning. And if I look at those tags, let's see, hold on, I've got, we can see that it's provisioning. I have multiple resources probably checked. And what will happen when you have that, we'll see the tags. So as you can see with my tags, here comes the cost center. That production that I put in is the environment and I provisioned in. And then our new features in the connector also show who the user is in ServiceNow. You can configure, ServiceNow admins can configure that as a tag as well, and any additional ServiceNow administrative tags. And that's available to learn about in our public documentation. So if we come back to the connector, we also created a widget in ServiceNow that you can put on the service portal to also view what products you've provisioned. And our products, since they now come with the product name and the timestamp, then you can see that I earlier today, just prior to this demo, I've already prepped a product that's provisioned. And then we'll see here that this one is currently going through the provisioning step. And if there are any outputs in the CloudFormation template, we put those into the actual product events. So for example, if somebody needs to capture a SageMaker notebook or a Juniper notebook URL, you can do that here, okay? But I want to go back real quick just to show you something before we go into I call it the fulfiller view. Some people call it ITIL, or the standard user interface view of ServiceNow. In addition to the ability of provisioning these products, you can also perform post-provision operational actions on these products. So for example, the product that I provisioned earlier today, I'm going to do a post-provisional operational action where you could update the parameters. If there are any AWS Systems Manager documents associated to the product, you can request those actions, be it a start, stop, or a reboot, or I can request a termination, okay? So earlier I did my little test on my compute that I requested. I no longer need this particular item. I'm just going to request termination. And when I do that, you're going to see that it's going to it's starting the process of creating a change request. And I'll show you guys that in just a minute, okay? So what we're doing is not only having the ability to have provisioning, but we're also doing post-provision operations in a self-service fashion. So instead of the end users having to submit a request to an email box that I'm done with my compute, can you guys turn it off, depending on skill levels of the end users, that's no longer needed anymore. They can do all those different actions, and those actions come natively with the AWS Service Catalog service. So this is the end user view via the ServiceNow portal. Now I want to go in and kind of give a little bit more depth of what the administrator would see for this connector. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in to the, if you call it the idle view or the standard user interface or fulfiller view, I'm going to go into the actual AWS scoped app that we created called the Service Management Connector. And as you can see, it does have the standard getting started details and links to different things, including the documentation. But I want to go to spend some time now and talk about AWS Config, right? And the resources that we bring over. So from a resource perspective, the primary resources that we bring over are EC2, RDS, and S3 buckets. And the supplementary resources are everything related to that's available for those resources in the primary, such as the VPCs, availability zones, volumes, per se. So let's look at RDS, right? And so I have 4 different RDS instances. And if I click on one, I bring in what we've done. We had a collaboration effort between AWS and ServiceNow's ITOM, IT Operations Management, and CMDB team of mapping these AWS config resources to the appropriate tables and fields in ServiceNow, so that if anyone runs the identification reconciliation engine, also known as IRE, that we map to the right tables and the reconciliation is done appropriately. So we bring in all these details for that particular data, that resource, right? We align to what's brought in and map to the out-of-the-box fields. And what a lot of customers like the ability to do is to see, well, from this view, how does this particular resource relate to all the different things? And so I want to go back to let's look at an EC2 instance, right? And I'm just going to pick one that I know has a lot of different compute on it. And from an EC2 perspective, you'll see we bring in the CPUs, the disk size, network adapters, bring in the state, if it's on or off, running, terminated, things in that realm. And then here's another view of that too, from a dependency perspective, okay? And it shows that resource and where it's located and what's the resource type. So the instance type is available as well. We also do map all these resources, the tag information for these resources. We do map those also into ServiceNow's we call them tags. ServiceNow calls them key values. And so we do bring those details over into the ServiceNow CMDB. And why is that important? As these details get in, the resource transparency, you know what's being provisioned. You know how to, you understand the state it's in, and you understand how it relates to things. And so that's the value of bringing these details in. And then ServiceNow CMDB admins can then do what they need to do to map it to the business services applications and above. So that's that value of that. From an AWS Systems Manager perspective, we bring over automation documents, and those documents become products that people can request. So in the account, we'll bring them all over, and then ServiceNow admins can inactivate those documents and determine which documents are available for end users to consume. Okay. So quickly, I'm going to go to the presentation, and then I'm going to go back to, from an installation perspective, there are 3 key areas to this connector. One, there's configuring the structure in AWS account, the permissions, IAM permissions, turning on the necessary permissions for the AWS Service Catalog, Systems Manager, as well as config, turning recording on in config. We do provide in our public documentation a baseline permission that kind of sets up all the baseline permissions you need, but acknowledge that as you add in more service requests, that you'll need to bring in more permissions if needed. But we try to give you the least amount for that. And then you have to install the scoped app, whether it's downloaded from the ServiceNow store, or if you're in a ServiceNow personal developer instance, uploading the update set into your ServiceNow instance. And then finally, once you do all the necessary configuration steps, validating that it works, okay? So what I want to show is that we do have instructions, public documentation on this connector on our public website. From a configuration, AWS Config perspective, we do show the resource detail mappings of what AWS would consider the name of it, and then the translation of how ServiceNow puts it into their CMDB as well. And all of that's under the same documentation series. We even have a YouTube video for the connector as well. And so what I want to do here is what I want you guys to take action, learn about this connector. First, identify what use cases make sense for you. The beauty of the connector is that we also enable you to choose which AWS service that you want in scope per account. So you have to understand, evaluate the connector, identify your purpose and use cases for it. We have a YouTube, we have public documentation, provide feedback. The one thing that I want to do is make sure that this connector provides a great experience, but also helps further enhance the IT lifecycle use case that you want to do. We started with initial provisioning. We heard feedback that we want more basic IT lifecycle as a foundation. The most common things customers ask me, since they know that I have an IT service management operations background, is how to provision, how to create incidents and ticketing, and how to put resource transparency in CMDB, and then finally how to do change management. but that's just a start, right? But we want to hear what else you want us to do so that we can, understand our customers' needs. And we want you to get not only workloads, compliant workloads, but your production level workloads, right? Because that's where your governance matters the most. We do, to provide us feedback, go to AWS Service Management Connector at Amazon.com. We'd love to hear from you. If you have an issue, we do in our Scoped app have an email alias on how to reach us from that, or you can create, if you have through enterprise support, you can also create a ticket for it from that as well. I thank you guys for your time, and let's work together.